Let's bring in David Priest. He's the publisher and chief operating officer at the national security website Lawfare. He's also a former intelligence officer at the CIA. David, thanks for being here.
You bet.
How do you see this playing out right now with what Putin is saying and doing?
Yeah, it's really interesting to watch how this shift has happened with the escalation that Putin is now involved in. He thinks that he's going to, even now, somehow get the Ukrainians to submit. If I fire a few more missiles at a few more civilian centers, that'll knock out their will to fight. And that's not what we've seen. I imagine that my former colleagues at CIA are presenting intelligence to the president and others in the government saying the Ukrainian will to fight is strong, and every time the Russians have escalated, when they've gone after civilian targets, it actually increases the Ukrainians' will to fight, and it makes them want to see this thing through to the end, even if it involves significant loss of life in the future. Even
if there are a lot of people in the U.S. who would like the Ukrainians to get to the table eventually, to negotiate something that gets us away from this very tense moment.
Yeah, really hard to go to the negotiating table if you're Zelensky right now, because the Russians have not only brutalized your people, but they're still holding on to significant amounts of Ukrainian territory. And that's not a good time to go to the negotiating table. Hence, we see the very strong counteroffensive of the last several weeks. The Ukrainians are moving to a position where Putin's going to have some tough choices to make about what is he actually going to do to escalate, if at all, or is he going to pull out of some of these areas to enable some face-saving measure on his own part? Frankly, I'm not seeing it yet. Putin seems to be escalating the rhetoric just the same way as generals are escalating the battlefield activity, but that is what we're looking for.
I want to turn to another aspect of Russia, and this deals with Russia interference. In October, days before the 2020 election, you signed on to this open letter that was published by Politico. It said, "We write to say that the arrival on the U.S. political scene of emails purportedly belonging to Vice President Biden's son Hunter, much of it related to his time serving on the board of the Ukrainian gas company Burisma, has all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation."
Right.
Why did you sign on to that?
Yeah, because of what it says. It has all the classic earmarks of one of these operations. You'll note elsewhere in the letter, if you read it, that it also says we don't know if this is a Russian operation at all. That has been dramatically changed in the retelling of the story. But the letter is merely pointing out that this is the kind of thing that time after time after time, people who study Russian disinformation, intelligence officers who look at Russian tactics over the long period of time, this is the kind of thing they like to amplify to sow discord within target countries. Now, sometimes that target country is the United States.
Right.
Most often in the Cold War, it was Europe. But the fact is, the tactic is an old one, a tried and true one, and it's been successful in the past.
But in this case, it was not true. It was not true. In fact, the New York Times found that these are authenticated. The Washington Post writes thousands of emails purportedly from the laptop computer of Hunter Biden are authentic communications that can be verified through cryptographic signatures from Google and other technology companies, say two security experts who examined the data. New York Post, who did the story first, says, holy cow, here are these other verifications. And then in the debate, right before the election, now President Biden used it. Take a listen.
Reckless, absolutely reckless. Putin heard this. Our allies and friends heard this. This is truly.
We're talking about the issue
from hell.
President Trump, we're talking about race right now, and I do want to stay on the issue of race. President Trump,
I have to respond to that.
Please,
because look,
very quickly.
There are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plant.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
That's exactly what.
Is this
that's
where you're
exactly
going?
what.
This is
told.
where he's.
So, understanding how you characterize it, but he characterized it differently and used it in a debate just days before an election.
Yeah, I'll let President Biden speak for himself. He's capable of doing that. What I'll do is say that it has all the classic earmarks of a Russian campaign in the way it was disseminated and propagated through media.
Do you regret signing on to the letter?
Oh, absolutely not, because those words are still true.
Do you think
it has all the classic
outcome
earmarks?
Of an election?
Oh, absolutely not. No,
Even though it wasn't true. It had the classic earmarks, but it wasn't true.
What is not true?
That it was Russian disinformation.
That's not what we said in the letter. Read the actual letter, and we said we do not know if this is Russian disinformation.
It has all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation.
Exactly. The difference between an information campaign and a disinformation campaign and a misinformation campaign, it's not my fault if people don't look up definitions.
I know, but the purpose of the letter is to have an effect. And the nuance that you're talking about here never made it to candidate Biden because he said it plainly on a debate stage that obviously affected the dynamic.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
I would absolutely love for all news media to show nuance on all these issues instead of racing to sound bites. And in this case, some news media race to sound bites. That's not helpful for the American people. And I really wish that people.
Was helpful for the American people?
Well, instead of quoting one sentence from it, if people actually read maybe an entire paragraph, it shows that we don't know if it's Russian.
It affected anything?
I don't know if it affected anything. We don't analyze American political environments.
We were trying to.
What we were trying to do is point out that this has all the classic earmarks of a Russian information campaign. Not to say it's Russian disinformation, but to say that the propagation through American media and international media has all the classic earmarks of a Russian information campaign, because we've seen it over and over and over again. They love to sow these kind of divisions and exacerbate them. That's not American, that's Russian.
I got you.
Yeah.
But it ended up being a Biden information campaign because he used it in the campaign and in that debate.
I encourage you to ask him about that.
And I will. Thank you very much, Dave, for the time.